Hello to my beautiful friends. How are you today? Welcome to the Nail Tip Show. So welcome back to another class of acrylic training. Before we start, I want to ask you guys how you guys doing with the first lesson. Do you guys have any more questions before we start the next one? Let me know. I'm going to give you guys a couple minutes to get ready and just kind of ask me questions if you have on the previous class about the prep on hand file, e-file, all the chemical preps. If you guys have any more questions or anything with acrylic brushes, how to store them, how to maintain them. I just want to take a couple minutes, just kind of go over anything that I have missed, or you guys still have questions. This is a good time. If not, then we can move on. I just want to make sure you got everything.
Where's it going?
Yeah, go.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and usually you're seeing this, but today you're seeing this. So thank you so much for supporting our channel and tuning in. So here at the Nail Tip Show, our goal is to help provide valuable nail techniques and information to help you grow your skills as a nail artist and, importantly, as a professional. So if you would like to further support us, you're welcome to provide donations to our channel. Your donations go directly to us to keep up the cost of our studio, our production, and the team behind the camera. We love to provide all this information and this content for you. If you would like to consider donating, the link is in our description, so please check that out. And we understand that in the midst of all this chaos, times are hard right now. So if you cannot donate, that is completely okay. We ask that you show support to us by screenshotting this show and tagging us on your social media platforms. And again, thank you so much for supporting us. And we hope that you will learn something new and hope that you continue to grow your skills.
Yes, and I personally want to thank some of you have made some donations, so thank you so much for that. Before we start, I want to shout out to Leah, Gina, Carrie, Karen, Jasmine, Sarah. I can't say your name. It's Jekka, Jekka. Is that right? If I mispronounce it, sorry. Nesha, Sarah, Sandhya, Sharia. I just want to say thank you for tuning in. We are excited and happy to have you here with us today. So doesn't look nail prep. Say fine bit on natural nail, coarse bit on forced nails. Yes. So on natural nails, you want to keep with fine bit or fine sanding band, maybe even medium. But we're gonna go through that more in depth on that when I help you guys when it comes to e-file class. Hopefully we can get all that ready, see how we can do with what we have in front of you, which is this is a second class. We could have another one planned. So one of the class I have planned is the e-files, and we're gonna go more in depth on the bits, and so then you guys have more information about that. Any more questions? I wrapped self-adhesive band around my drill to prevent slipping. Oh, okay. Okay, so wait, I'm trying to read some of the comments, so then I want to know if you guys have any questions, so give me a couple minutes. Great tips regarding clean and maintain the brush was great. Oh, good. Okay, so it doesn't look like you guys have any questions at all. Okay, let's move on then. So today we're gonna talk about, or I'm teaching about the liquids and of course the perfect ratio of liquid and powder. To start off, acrylic nails are created using a mix of liquid and powder, right? And powders pretty much across from different companies. From their circuitry or the blends of the company. But two liquids that are standard to use are MMA and EMA. So on the screen you are looking at the note that I have here for you. So I'm just gonna real quick two standard type of liquid or monomer used to activate the acrylic powder to make it melt onto the nails are methyl methacrylate, short for MMA, and another one is ethyl methacrylate, short for EMA. So both would start off in the 1670s. We use a lot of MMA, but through the courses of time, people complaining about how harmful it is, and it's really damaging the nail plate and the nail bed. So the FDA and Board of Cosmetology banned it in the end of 1990s because the harmful side effect of it. So let me just give you a quick on my notes here. I wrote some notes for you guys to see why the state board and the FDA banned it, because it's really MMA is a type of liquid that really needs to you really need to have roughen the nail plate in order for it to stay on, because it needs grooves and texture to grab on the nail plate, because a lot of nail tech are doing that, so they are thinning the natural nail plate. So that's why it's bad. Another reason is that it's really hard and rigid on the nail when you apply on when it cures. It's very tightened. It feels like a rock on the fingernail. So a lot of clients have hard time with that. So if a client accidentally, jam at it or hit it hard, the whole nail came off. I mean, I'm talking about the whole nail plate even will come off with the nail, because it's so rigid and hard that would take the whole nail off. So that's the reason why it was banned. And another reason is it's turned yellow. It doesn't stay clear, and the liquid doesn't stay clear, and the clarity of the product doesn't stain the natural nail plate, becomes more yellow, and the smell is like a pungent. So a lot of time nail tech have to wear like a thick mask to work with it. So another thing is it's not, I know a lot of people, I hear, sometimes you see an educator will say, oh, it's really bad and harmful for you. Well, in terms of health, in a way, it's not really that bad, because right now, the dental industry is still using it as a compound to mainly use, for production of bridges and crowns. So it can't be that bad if it's used in your body. But for specifically on the nails, it's really bad because it's really hard on a nail plate. Like I said, you have to rough it up, so it end up you have thin nail plate. It's hard to remove because it's solid like a rock. So you really have to drill it out. It has more like acetone. It doesn't it's more resistant to solvents, so that's why it's hard to soak off. You have to drill them off, and especially for those that are not really good with e-file or shaping, filing, it's really taking a lot of time and effort to drill it off. So that's why in the late 90s, the FDA and the State Board of Cosmetology referred to use EMA as ethyl methacrylate, which is another alternative that is best for the nail plate. So that's why we refer, and a lot of professional manufacturers provide that type of liquid for you. Although the industry still have MMA available because it's a third of the cost. It's cheaper. So a lot of, discounted salons still use that, but unfortunately, you can't control that, because as of right now, I find out it's only like over 30 states a ban of the use of MMA. And I believe Canada and New Zealand as well are banned to use MMA. So it all depends on each state how they regulate that use of it. But the reason MMA is so nice because it's the smell is less odor, and it's a better adhesion to the nail without damaging. You don't have to roughen up the nails. You just simply make sure you prep the nails well. That's why we did that yesterday. As long as you prep the nails well, you use the dehydrator, and if the company allow you to use primer, follow their instruction with the primer. But other than that, it's more flexible. So when a client break the nails, the whole nail plate will cannot come off because it's more flexible. So the acrylic will just crack or that's it. So it doesn't like take off the whole nail plate as MMA does. Okay, so yeah, I mean, and it feels more comfortable to the nails as well because it's not hardened like a rock, like a solid rock. So it just feels more comfortable on the client. So that's why the more, like I said, manufacturers and professional nail companies offer EMA. So yeah, so if your client come in, you know, those are the things you need to explain to them. What's the difference between MMA and EMA? Okay. Anybody using MMA now? I don't know you guys using it but you know, MMA is it dries which much quicker too versus EMA. So today on my show, everything I use is more like from professional line. So always is EMA liquid. Okay, guys. So are you guys doing okay? Do you have any more questions about that? Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so now you have a little bit of background of the MMA and EMA, the difference of it. Let's talk about the proper mix ratio of liquid and powder, right? So in order to create a beautiful nails, you have to have the proper mix ratio. So how know that you have the perfect mix, right? Well, it's hard to measure because when you work with, things that on the brush and a dampened dish, there's no measurement. I mean, you hear a lot about, 2-to-1 or 1.5-to-1 ratio, but really, it just kind of give you a guidance of kind of imagine how it's in your head, how much it's allow you to use, but there's no measurement. So I have to say most of it is you have to use your own judgment and a keen eye to know it's right or not. So today I'm going to give you a lot of tools and a lot of techniques so you know the proper way to know the right ratio. So when you know you have the right mix is when by judging the look of it, the feel of it, the color of it, and the size of the bead. So these 4 criteria will let you know if you have the right mix or not. So let's move on. I'm going to demonstrate now how you pick up the right ratio, right? So let's just say a clean dampened dish. I'm going to use liquid, and the one way that you could always pour out monomer is not just go straight pour it in, okay? Use your brush and pour it in. That way it doesn't spill everywhere, okay? So you always pour, whether you're practicing or when you're working, make sure you have enough liquid to submerge the whole hair in. That means all your strands or your bristles submerge and dive right in the liquid. You need at least that amount to work with. Okay. Okay, so now when you have a dampened dish filled with monomer, so the brush. I'm gonna work with a small brush, number 8 and number 12, so you can see the difference with how I pick up the powder, right? So when you work with the brush, let me show you this one because this is, so let's just say to prep the brush, you always, before you work on a client, always prep your brush by submerge and dive all in. You see the little bubble coming out when I dive right in? Because the brush is not fully submerged, all the liquid. It's kind of, the brush is dry. So when you dip it in, that means slowly the brush will be submerged all the liquid and all the bubble coming out. And you need to get all the bubbles out before you work, because otherwise you're gonna have the bubbles on your nails. Okay? So remember that. I would just do that a little bit, few times, and just prepare the brush a little bit. Make sure I have all the liquid in here before I work. Okay? You don't have to do a lot, just few times. Just by kind of pressing it down lightly and make sure the brush is totally submerged in, and you wipe. So, okay, look at the brush. When you work on the brush, make sure it's like this. It looks like this, right? When you draw the liquid out, you don't pick up the powder on this side. The side that you draw out, you do not pick up powder on that side. You pick up the powder on the opposite side. So that's why I always draw out right here, and then I pick up the powder right there. Okay, so I'm gonna use a natural color so you can see. All right, so I'm gonna leave it here so you can see it. Okay, so let's pretend. Okay, when you prepare the brush, okay, I make sure I have everything in. I draw out liquid. When you draw out liquid, is don't do all the way out. Okay, it's better just to draw halfway, because when you draw all the way out, that means you're taking a lot of product off, the liquid off. So draw about half side, half of the belly, and then pick up the product on this side. Okay, I'm gonna do it slowly because I know a lot of you have asked a lot of questions about this, so bear with me. I'm gonna take it slow, and then if you guys have any questions, just ask me, okay? And then, so you draw it halfway out, and then this is how you pick up. You place your brush about 45-degree angle, and then you press down. And you wait, look at the liquid absorb the powder. Okay? And then that's the side you press it down. Okay, so now let's do that again. So let's try this technique, okay, and see if I could pick up a small bead. So I drag it at half. For a small bead, you just press it once, and that's it. You wait for a few seconds for the liquid and the powder to keep the liquid absorb into the powder, and then you place on your tip. But let's worry about that later, just to show you how you pick it up. So for medium, you see every time I go back, I press it, you see bubble coming out. And that's what you do every time. You always make sure you always put it all the way in, and then draw it out, and then pick up 1, 2, and wait. And then when you see the absorption is done, then you place it on the finger. Okay, so let's just say I want a large one. So I always see it. For a large one, I tap it very lightly, and then I tilt my brush and press 1, 2, 3. And you see slowly all the powder and the liquid absorb together. It's called the process of polymerizing. So then it's hardened. I mean, slowly absorb together, and then that's how you get the large. Okay? Okay, so by picking up a large brush, a large bead, you just tap lightly. Because remember I told you the belly, that's where it holds all the liquid. If you tap it all the way out, that means you tap a lot. Unless you want a small bead, really small one, then you could do that. Because I'm working brush number 12. If I especially want a small bead, I don't want to have a lot of liquid, in my brush. So I can draw little bit more hard press on it. So then I draw a little bit more liquid out for a small bead. Okay, but if I want a large one, okay, look, when I press it down, you see the bubble coming out? That means the brush, it needs more liquid. So always tap lightly, and then 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then that's it. You have a large one. For medium, For medium, 1, 2, that's it. And then for really large one, like extra large bead, you just barely tap and you just go 1, 2, 3, 4, and slowly let it absorb, and then press it down. Okay, so by the way, how the bead is, when you place the bead down, how it's spread is also determined if you have a lot of liquid or not. When you put a bead down, okay, when you put a bead down and it's all like spreading quickly, it's dripping everywhere, like you see how the ball is like more flattened down, that means it's slightly too wet. Okay, so let me clean that out. That's too wet because it's like spreading everywhere. But if you pick up the right bead, right here, and just let it there, you see how it just kind of stay? And then that's when you go back and start working on it.
We have a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So first one is, how do you know when you have bad acrylic?
Bad acrylic, well, the color, look at the color of it, see if it not true to the color, that when you, because sometimes when it's old, it gets marbly. Well, marbling can be two things. First of all, sometimes the product is not, sometimes you know, the powder you have to mix well before I use, especially with dipping. But for acrylic, same thing. I usually, if the jar that I don't use every day, I only use it some once in a while, especially the color one, I usually mix it a little bit before I use. It's an adhesion. I would say the key here is the color of the powder. If it's not matching the color of it, and the adhesion, when your client wear it, it lifts up easily. Either the product is too old or you don't use enough liquid, the ratio. You don't have enough the proper mix ratio. So yeah.
And then next question is, do bubbles contribute to lifting?
Yes, because the reason it's bubbled because you see how every time I wipe clean, that means I barely have any liquid in there. So if you look at the brush here, every time I put it in, look, see the bubble come out, right? So that means I'm pressing the bubble out and I slowly absorb more liquid in. So that's why you need to do that every time when you pick up the powder. You need to press all that bubble out and have enough liquid in there, and then just draw a little bit, depends on the size of the ball that you want to pick up. Does that make sense? Yeah. You have to, because if you don't, like I said, this process is really key. This is why I take it slow. I want to make sure you work on it well enough where you don't have any problem. And it start from here. If you don't see what you're doing here is wrong, then you don't understand why you have problem with your ball. Okay? So yeah, let me work it on a little bit. Okay. Okay. So the size of the brush does matter too, because obviously the bigger brush pick up bigger, ball of the bead. So when you work with acrylic, make sure if you're just starting out, I said a lot of times where you should just start with number 8 or 10, because when you pick up too big of the ball, you don't have the control of it. You don't know how to control it yet. So it's just better, this is size number 8, and you can just start, same thing. The brush doesn't, just because you use smaller size, the consistency is about the same. I would say create a bad habit by doing the right steps. So the bead is slightly smaller because the brush is smaller. But then you have more control of it. Look how much you have control of it instead of, see, it just stays. It doesn't move, it's movable. That's when you know you have the right bead. and you have approximately between, I would say, a minute and a half to 2 minutes, but it also depends on the weather as well. So 3 components that I find that is really determine the effect of the size of the ball is, first of all, the powder, the liquid, and the temperature in your work area. You don't want to, wintertime, you want to work with less liquid because it's slightly cold, so the monomer tends to get runnier. Okay, so you can set the temperature in your salon to make sure, I would say keep it 70, 68, 70, that's probably the best, temperature to work with. Sometimes I even set 72. Depends the size of salon too. It does matter because you have a lot more people. That means, the warmth coming out more, so it changes the temperature. So yeah, it does, the temperature of the room that you're in, it does matter too, okay? So let me do this again. So the key here, always, pick it up, tap it out, and how you angle the brush too. Let me talk about the brush now. Okay, so let's just say I drag halfway out. So I can pick a medium size with this, but if I want to pick a small, all I do, instead of placing my brush, angle 45-degree angle, I tilt it a little bit up, then I pick up small. Then it's just enough liquid. See, it's not runny, it stays. And it's kind of frosty. That's when you know you have enough liquid. It's like a frosty glass look. That's when you know you have enough. Okay? But the reason, even though I tap the same way to pick up medium, right? It's still good enough, right? I still use the same liquid, but you know why it's different? Because the way I make contact from my brush to the powder, meaning if I slant it up, only my tip, where the flags of the tip, the flags of the brush, make contact with the powder. So that means that point of contact, I only get that much, that's it. Okay? So let's just say I tap halfway, right? I could pick medium by 2. I still have enough. You see, I don't have that powdery look around the rim. I still have enough, and it's not runny. It still stay frosted, right? And then if I just do the same thing, but if I only tilt it up and I pick up small, and it's not runny. You see that? That's because the point of contact from the brush to the powder. So if I want a large one, I tap it lightly, but then I make more contact. Now I pick up a bigger ball. And sometimes too, if you see that you have more liquid, you can always go back and tap slightly more too. You could do that. If it's wet, it's always better to work on slightly wetter side, because if it's too wet, you can always tap the excess liquid out from the brush. Okay. So let's just say you have too much liquid, right? Let me do this so then you can see this. You have too much liquid, it gets shiny so quickly, you can always tap it out a little bit. So as you tap it out, you see the ball is not as shiny anymore. Then that's just enough, because you still see the coloration is still frosting. It's like a little frosted look, right? It's still clear. Well, remind you, this is a natural powder, okay? So it's not as clear and it's not as white. Any more questions?
Yeah, we have a couple.
Mm-hmm.
So, first one, is it recommended to use the manufacturer's acrylic brush since they are designed to pick up the correct ration for their product?
Ratio, yeah.
I always wonder how to correctly measure ratio.
Again, I told you, there's no way we can measure exactly. you have to base on your judgment and your keen eye, because now you know how you do it, the look and the feel of it, that you're by touching it, and how you move it on the tip. But when you practice on the tip, it's slightly different on the nail as well, because you have body temperature. So that's why it's very important to practice and you get used to the acrylic system that you are using. I highly recommend you guys use the whole system from one manufacturer, because it's better to use their liquid, powder, and if they have brush, use their brush as well, because that's why they create the system for you, is to make it easy for you. But if with brushes, I get it, you can buy from another company, and that's okay. As long as your liquid and powder are together in one system, I would say that's a must. With brush, you can kind of like, go buy different size of brush. But just learning by the feel of the liquid and powder, and the look of it, the feel of it, and see how the color turn out, that's determined if you have the ratio or not.
Next question. Is it important to even out your powder by slightly shaking the jar after using it so that you can pick up a good bead?
Yeah, when you practice, I always suggest you to kind of like, it's better to better to level it out, so then it's easier for you to know how you pick up, it's better. And how you press into the powder. Let me show you how you press, because a lot of time when people do this, they just like, it gets everywhere. It's too high, right? It's better just to dive where the flags of the brush, okay? You see here? It gets everywhere, because you first of all, you don't have enough liquid, and then the way you pick them up is better. First of all, you have to have enough liquid. You have to know how much the size of the ball that you want to pick up. If you want to pick up small, then just angle it up, and that's it. And you see how it's absorbed quickly. You see the ball is nice. That's perfect. It's not running, right? So it's not messy for you to lay it down. But when you have it too messy, it's hard to lay it down. It won't go down. See? It won't go down because it's not enough liquid. It's not enough for you, and look how messy this is.
We have a couple more questions already.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, someone says, I want to know the difference between monomer and liquid, like if they're completely different things, and which one is good.
Well, for acrylic nails, you need the right proper mix of liquid and powder, right? So I don't know how to answer that, because for acrylic nails, you need the liquid and the powder to get hardened into a ball for you to use it.
They're asking if liquid and monomer are two different things.
Oh, liquid and monomer is the same.
There you go.
Yeah, it's the same.
And then, what is the difference of using color acrylic powder versus neutral colors?
Well, the reason manufacturers offer different color and all that, because it's all preference of your clients. Some people, like the color acrylic, we use it to design. Obviously, I have done a lot of design with color acrylic. I love it. It's more, I would say it stays a lot better on, and it's just creativity. I mean, there's no right or wrong to it. If you don't like to work with a lot of color acrylic, then stay with clear nude, because you can always change. You don't have to take the color acrylic out each set. Because a lot of people like to wear design, and then if they change their mind, you have to take the whole set off because they want a different color, different design on. But if you keep it nude and clear and just use a different gel polish, then you just have to take the gel polish off and fill with clear or nude color, and then that's it. So it's just a matter of preference.
Why does my product go really hot on the nails sometimes?
Oh, that's called curing process. It's a curing time. Just like gel, okay, acrylic the same. When it's hardened, it's polymerization, the process of hardening. It's the warmth, you feel the warmth in it. If your client feel like uncomfortable, that means that nail plate is really thin. Especially with gel, you feel it when the clients have really thin nail, they feel the heat right away. So that's the key for proper prepping, is for you to prep well and to protect that nail plate. That's why I always suggest not to over-file when you prep, because you want to keep that nail plate strong and thick as possible, so then any product you put on, you will not have that problem. But you do, in normal setting, you do feel the warmth because it's a curing process.
And then one more, Gina asks, I think I remember Anne told us from previous classes that color powder has more pigment, so it may cure faster. Is that correct?
Depends on, yes, it's slightly, because it's all depends the formulation of each company. But I would say because of the pigment and the powder, it mixed together, some dry quicker. I find that some dry quicker. So when you work on, like just say you are brand new nail tech, right? When you're working with acrylic system, I suggest start with nude, clear, less pigment, because just learn the consistency of that yet, and then you can adapt to color a little bit better. Once you master just the basic nude and clear, or even natural like today I'm using, it's better. It's kind of like the fundamental, step that you get comfortable with. Then you can move up to color. Yeah. And again, the curing process is all depends on the liquid, powder, and the room temperature. Okay, guys, that's the three main component. I cannot say I can't say, okay, this color dry quicker or this one dry less, because when you use different companies, the formulations are different, so the setting will be different as well. So I have to say you have to play with it and get comfortable with the system that you are choosing. Yeah? So now that you get let's just say you get used to this, right? And first just play with it and get used to the bead. So let me just make it real quick. Let me do the small one. Okay. That's small. When you practice, this is another thing that I want you to, when you play down the process, if your bead doesn't come off right away, that means the ball is too dry. Okay? So make sure you practice at least, I would say spend at least an hour each day. Just kind of get used to it and get the momentum of how you do it. So then you can pick up. Because when you place it on the paper, it's slightly different on the tip, and it's also slightly different on the nail. Because each product that you lay it on, it affects the bead of the ball differently, because this one absorbs quickly, but it's easier for you to practice on here so it doesn't get messy. Once you get comfortable with it, you have to learn to adjust a little bit on the tip, and then you have to learn to adjust with the nail as well, because your natural, the hand has natural heat, so it's affect how it cures as well. So when you practice, pay attention to that. Okay, so so then you know how to pick up the bead, the big ball, right? Like just tap, press it down, and wait for it to absorb. You see how slowly become kind of like from orange peel slowly to more like a ball look. Okay, so that's when you know enough. Okay, let's just say you lay it on the tip. So when you practice, okay, practice, take it down, put a bead, put it there. You see how it just stay like that? Then clean your brush. And this is when you tap it out a couple of times because you don't want it too wet. Then go back, press. Use the belly of the brush and press it down. See, when your brush is clean, you see the surface is smooth. If your surface of the ball is rough or too tacky, that means your brush is not clean enough. You see how you have time to play like a clay? That's when you know you have the right consistency. If you keep chasing it for it to pat in, it's not running, that means it's too wet. And you see, even though I play with it, you see how smooth that is? And you want that smooth, so then you don't have to do a lot of shaping. Okay? And now, let me see if I work on the next bead, okay? And make sure I look at it, and I place it down. It stays, right? And then I clean my brush. I always clean my brush and draw out my liquid. And I go back and tap on it. I use the belly of the brush. Remember we talked about that, the belly of the brush, and press it down. And slowly press it down. And then that's how you have a smooth surface. Okay, let me go get the white so you can see slightly better. Okay. When you work on a tip like this, it's better to practice 3 balls at the beginning, and then when you get better, try to do 2. When you're just learning how to do this, try not to do 1, because 1 is too big for you to handle. Okay? So look, press it down, do a medium ball, place it down. Right? And then clean my brush. You see it's not runny. And then clean my brush, tap it down. Slowly. You see, when you pick enough, it's so easy to work with. When you're struggling, that means you either have it too dry or too wet. That's another sign too. Trust your feeling when it comes to this, because that's how you learn to have a better judgment next time when you work on a bead, if you have enough or you have not enough. You see how I easily play with it without any problem, and my brush is clean. I always, after I play with it, how I mold it and press on it, I clean my brush and go back to the monomer and clean my brush. Okay? Anybody have questions? Okay. So then, next one, especially in a dry weather, like summer, I slightly tap my surface before I put on the good bead, because it dries so quick that sometimes it's dried out the powder. I always kind of dab a little bit with monomer before I pick up the next bead, because the summertime is too hot, it dries quickly. And then what I do is here, I just go back and press that out and blend that in. Just by using, when you're blending, try to keep the tip of the brush and pat that down and blend it and make it seamless. The more seamless you can do, the better, because you don't have to shape that and blend that out later. So when you work with liquid and powder, it's best to learn how to take care of the brush, so then you don't have problem. Because anytime, okay, let's just say you have a big gear. It's not, you see how it's not, the surface is really dry. You see how you have hard time placing it down. That means it's too dry. That's not an indication that the ball is too dry for you. Okay? So let me work on another one. And it's too wet, it's too runny. Okay? You have any questions about the look, the feel, the color of it? the color of it is all, like I said, let me pick out another color, okay? You have to make sure if it's clear powder, it has to be frosted a little bit. But with color, here, let me show you a color so then you can see. You see how it just, that's when you know it's enough. Okay, it's totally, you have to wait for a couple seconds. If it's too wet, you can also tap slightly to make it more. You need to, but you see it still gives you that smooth surface a little bit, and then you place it on. You don't have to hold this long. I'm just showing you how it's supposed to look. On average, I would say I would hold it for a couple seconds. Like it's almost like absorbed all the liquid in, and then I place it down. And then I clean my brush, and then I go back and work on it. See how I work on it? My brush, it doesn't attach to my brush. And that's when you know the right consistency too. If you keep tapping and you have product in here, that means your brush is too dry and your bead is too dry. But if when you have enough consistency, you see how smooth it looks and how easy you can work, how easily you can move it around, pat it down without any product on the brush. I still have to clean the brush because when it has pigment, chances are you have some color in here. You always clean it before you go back to the monomer.
We have a couple of questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's getting lost in all the comments.
It's okay.
Someone asked, is there a recommended size for each skill level? And I think when they mentioned size, they either mentioned
The brush?
for either brush or the bead. I don't know.
Not really. I would say beginners try not to work with a large size bead because, like I said, you don't really have control of it yet. Try to work medium size. I find that's the best because it's just easy to manage. See, when you place it down, it's manageable. And then you can just work on utilize the tip of the brush and pat that down and blend that out. I'd rather work small because I can easily blend that out and smooth that out. You see how easily I can smooth that out? But if I work too big, and then you don't have the right consistency, and you have hard time blending that out. And then later it's too thick on the cuticle area or the body of then later you have to do a lot of shaping. So I'd rather work with medium size and small bead first, and then as you get more comfortable with your application, then move on. You know, there's always room to grow and be better at things, but to start off, start slow and just work slow. Okay?
Someone also says that some acrylic colors change color when you pick up the bead, so is it the acrylic or is it the monomer?
Yeah, that's why I recommend to stick with the same company, the liquid and they formulated their product according to their liquid and powder. So when you change, when you use liquid from one company and another powder from another company, there's going to be variation and you don't know why you have problem with it. So it's best to stick with the same company. That's all I can say. I don't know how else to say it because I can't answer that. When you use the same company and you have that problem, you can call the company and maybe they will give you the right technique to use the product.
Okay, next question.
Mm-hmm.
How much pressure should I use when smoothing out the bead on the nail?
Okay, not much. Just like e-filing, your acrylic, you press on it. You slightly put a press, but with a control press. Does that make sense? You don't want, because look, if you press too much, let's just say you put a powder on, okay? You don't want to press too deep in. When you press too deep in, that's what happened. Look how flat it is. See? So you want to control where you put it on. Okay? So you want to pat it you control it where you stay within the perimeter of the nail. You don't want to flatten it out. First of all, when you flatten out, your acrylic get everywhere, and the chances are you're going to get acrylic on top of your brush. And then that's where you're going to have problem with the brush. Okay? So just kind of light press. I would say press the side lightly, gently. You don't want to put a lot of pressure. You don't. It shouldn't be a lot of work for you, because that's why you pick up the right consistency, the bead every time. Less work, less padding, less smoothing out. That's why it's always good to take the time and make sure you practice. Yeah? Okay, let me throw that out.
And then another question, it's your suggestion on what you think it's easier to start with, whether neutrals, clear, or a little bit of color.
I would say to practice, use the nude color, because nude color have enough powder and it's not so much pigment, so it's just easy to work with. Stick with nude or natural color. I find that it's kind of like the balance of the powder and not too much pigment, so you don't have to worry. And then when you work with a lot of pigment, a lot of time you're not careful, your monomer get cloudy or get dirty real quick, and then you don't take care of the brush, you're gonna ruin the brush as well. When you work powder and all that, you see, because I've been using a lot of white, a lot of color, my monomer get a little bit cloudy, and you don't want to keep using that liquid. You don't want to keep pouring new liquid into this. When you practice and your powder get cloudy, discard it right away and get a fresh liquid, because when you have a clean brush, it's easier for you to use the product, pat it down, and play with it. Because if your brush is dirty, it's hard for you to blend that out. You will not have a clean surface when you blending your acrylic down. Because what happens is that when your brush is dirty, it has powder in here, and powder attract powder. So then you will not have a smooth brush or clean brush to work with. So it's better to discard, like you see how I press on it. I didn't wipe the brush down. You see how much my liquid get dirty? That's why it's always clean your brush before you put back. And that's how you contaminate a lot of product in here, because you don't, that's why it's always place the bead down, press, clean both sides, and go back. Okay? So let me get a clean monomer. You see, if this is getting cloudy, don't use it. Clean that off and practice again, because keep your brush and your product clean. And that's why I always suggest you, when you work on a client, try not to pour out. A lot of people I see, they use a big Dampened Dish, right? And pour it all out, and they use on a couple clients, right? No, you're supposed to use enough liquid for each client only. After you're done with whatever leftover, discard it. I'd rather waste a little product, but each client that you're working on, the nail will last. Your service is better, so then in return, your client come back to you better. So I waste a little bit, but look how I can keep everything clean, So think about that. Try not to, and because your monomer, when it sits out in the air, it evaporates. So the chemistry and all the component, it doesn't work as well anymore for the next client. So it's best just to use enough monomer. Make sure you have enough to submerge all the product into the brush and use for each client. And that, you will learn how much you need for each client as you work. You will know how much you need. At first, you might waste a little bit, but that's okay. You're doing the right thing. You set yourself up for success by doing the right steps.
Someone asks, how do you make an apex with a small bead? So how do you build it up?
That class will be next, right? So the next class, we're going to go through the structure of the nail, right? So the next class is on Monday. Be sure you tune in because I'm gonna show you, you know, for the nail, where's the thinnest part of the nail, where's the thickest part of the nail. So we're gonna go through all that. But today, I just wanna show you how to pick the bead and how to lay it down, so then you can see, you can practice. I want you to practice so then you can build the overlay only. Focus on the overlay right now. Don't worry about the long nail, because once you master the overlay, then everything else is gonna be a lot easier. Okay, so let me go through, now let's go through the cuticle a little bit. Okay, let me go through the cuticle application a little bit, because I know a lot of people have questions about that. Let me throw this away.
Oh, wait, really quickly. Someone asked, how should I dispose of the excess monomer in the Dampened Dish after I'm finished? Like, is there a proper way?
Yeah, okay, let me show you what I do in a salon, because a lot of time, I know, so every time I work on a client, I don't waste a lot of product. I'll cut my paper out, because like I said, at the beginning, you do use a thicker paper because you work on, you work and you waste a lot of liquid and monomer. So because you just learning, and it's okay. But now as I'm doing it, like just say I use on one side, and then when I'm done, I just fold it in. I use the clean side, and I wipe the Dampened Dish, and I wipe everything clean and discard that. That way my client loves it, because every time I'm done with their service, they know I cleaned out my Dampened Dish. I use the same paper because I don't need to, but if you feel like this get dirty, then use another clean paper and just wipe your Dampened Dish. Make sure you clean your brush. If your liquid get really cloudy, you can't clean your brush with it. Get a little bit more, pour out, wipe everything, pour out a clean monomer, and clean your brush. This is key, okay, guys, like I told you the first class. When you keep your brush nice and clean all the time, this brush will last you for years. I mean years. Seriously. That's why I always recommend to buy a good product, because you learn how to take care of it. That will last you longer. And when you use a good quality product, your work will be better and easier. Versus buying a cheap one, the hair is not soft enough for you. The way your hair can get shed quicker because it's not well made. So it's better to buy a good professional brand, that the company stand behind their product, and just use it and learn how to take care of it. That's why I give you all the tools, not just how to do things, but how to maintain them, so then you can take care of your product and keep it on longer. Yeah? Okay.
Another question. Is it easier to start from the top with small beads or from the middle?
Okay. For beginners, let me take you from the beginning to the end, okay? So when you work to build a nail on, whether you have tip or form, I highly recommend working from the zone 1 and zone 2 and zone 3. Meaning zone 1, let me see. Okay, let's just say a nail, right? The nail, right? Let's just say my nail here, right? Zone 1 is from the free edge out. This is a long one. So my zone 1 is always from the free edge, whatever out. That's zone 1. Zone 2 is more like a stress area. Okay? And zone 3 is where the cuticle is. So your nail divided into like 3 sections. From this to this to this. Okay? When you work on a nail, whether you have short, still, let's just say Tammy, she has a short nail, right? So you work here on the free edge first, meaning you work here, right there. So this one, since it's short, I can divide it into 2 instead of 3 because it's so short. But with long nail like I have, I divide into 3 because my zone 1 is much longer because my nails are longer. Because this nail is short, you divide into 2 parts. But the zone 1 is still right here where the free edge at. Zone 2 is where the stress area, and zone 3 is where near the cuticle. okay? So when you work, it's always best to work in zone 1 first. So let's just say this one right here, right? Work medium side. That's why you don't need to work on a medium side and place it here, okay? Medium. And then once it get that, I clean my brush, wipe it clean, okay? And I go back and press it down. I start at the side and press. I always start a little bit in the center and then I press that in because you want all the product to go in the center. You want enough on the side, but not everywhere on the side. You constantly press everything towards the center because that's your stress area and that's where you need the product the most to hold your shape in. So your side, you press, okay? You press lightly. You see how I press? I'm not flare out the nail. I press, but I kind of push everything towards more the center. But you don't want to make it look like everything just sticking out the center. You want to blend it. So make it look like it's blended, everything in the center, but everything is nice and smooth. But the illusion is everything thin on the sides and thick at the center. But then once you have everything in place, you want to smooth that out. That's how you have a nice, clean surface. Yeah? Okay? So that's how the feel and the look of it, that's how you determine you have the right bead. Because if you're working on it and you can't play around, it's not enough time within that 2 minutes for you to play, that means it's too dry. But if you're working on it and you keep constantly struggling, pull the product up, and stay into place, that means it's too wet. So that's where I tell you, you can't measure exact ratio, but the look and the feel and the touch of it will let you know you have the right consistency or not. And all my friend, I'm telling you, it's all by using a good judgment and your keen eyes to tell you you have the right bead or not. Okay? Yeah? Okay, so now I have that in, right? So now, if you look on the side, okay, look at the thickness. I don't know, you can see the thickness. You see the thickness, the side, slightly thicker, right? That's because that's where I want it. And the side, if I have a little bit much out, don't worry, I can shape that a little bit. But just to show you, the thinness is on the side and the thickness is in the center. But from this view, you can't see it, right? Not much. I mean, if you can see it, the hump a little bit, you can still see it. But we're gonna go through that a little bit later when I tell you the apex, the thing, and also how you check your work by looking different angle as well. And we will go on into that. Okay, so the next bead, let's work with next bead. I'm gonna go into a medium size, right? I'm gonna place it right next on top of that bead. You wanna connect it, but you don't wanna lay on top of it. Okay, so now I'm gonna blend that out. Pat it and blend that out. You want to pat. See the thick, too thick here? You can use the belly of the brush and pat that out. When you work with acrylic, it's very important to keep the brush clean because I told you you need the clean brush to blend everything smoothly, but the tip of the brush and the belly of the brush is very important. So that's why you keep your brush nice and clean and work and flatten it out. That way it's easier for you to blend. After you have everything laid down, I always clean my brush and put a little bit monomer to have it slightly moist and then go back and slightly just clean that out. And then wipe it clean before I put back. I'm gonna show you, okay? Let me show you okay, let me finish this cuticle. Let me show you one mistake. Cuticle area first. So with the cuticle, you don't want it too wet or too dry, because when it's too dry, that's where the cuticle is lifting easily, right? But too wet, you can have that problem too. See, when the product too wet, you're gonna get brittle. You're gonna get is prone to lifting because the consistency is not there. Dry and wet, you have similar problem where you're gonna the product is not enough ratio, it get brittle, you get lifting easily. So that's why you have to practice. So when you work on a cuticle, make sure you work on a smaller bead and tilt your finger about 45-degree angle, and just keep your product behind your brush, and just pat that out and then blend. Use the tip of the brush. That's it. Because you have the right consistency already, then it's just really easy to work with. A lot of you have problem with the cuticle area because you don't have enough consistency. You either have it too wet or too dry, so then you're struggling with it. But if you notice when I have enough, I just lay it, tilt your angle of the nail, and let the gravity pull down, and all you do is blend it down. That's it. The reason it's easy for me because I pick up the right ratio. That's it. You see how it's nice and clean? It doesn't get runny and everything. Okay. And now you pat. Okay. One mistake that I know a lot of people do, like let's just say you pat it, you don't clean the brush. And look what happened to the brush when I pull in. Look, okay? You see how, I don't know, you can see a little bit powder. And if you work with color, you really see the pigment. Here, let me, since I already have that. Let me pick out the color so I can show you. Hold on. No, maybe it's this one. Let me see if this one works. Let's just say I pick up the powder, I work, I blend everything down, right? And without cleaning wipe my brush, look, I have a little bit of powder, right? Because I didn't clean it, and now I put it back, and look how the powder get all the liquid, Okay, let me do that again so then the cameraman can show you. Okay, let's just say I put a bead and I play with it. Okay, I pat, I press, I blend everything. Nice and smooth, everything. Okay? And if I smooth it, you see, if I don't clean the brush, it's not gonna be smooth because I keep patting the dirty powder back and forth on the surface. Okay? And now, when I don't clean the brush without putting it back, I keep patting it, and that means all the powder get in here. And when I submerge in here, look how the powder get cloudier and cloudier each time. Because without wiping it clean, and I put it in here, that means I add more powder into my liquid. So that's why slowly the liquid become thicker and cloudier. Do you guys see that? Should I use another color, like a darker color, so you can see? Hold on, let me grab a darker color. I want to make this point really because this is a lot of you have this trouble. You don't clean the brush in between your working process, and that's how you get a lot of. I know the monomer is already dirty, but let's just say I pick up the bead, right? It's good right now. And then you see, just put that in. I slightly have the little bit powder into the brush. I have to wipe that down, right? You see by wiping down, you see how I have, you see right there? Okay, you want me to do it again? Okay, let me do it again because I did it too quick. The camera guy can't. Okay, let me set up again. Okay. Okay, so now let's just say I pick up a bead. I lay it down. You see I have a little bit powder on my brush. And if I don't wipe it, I keep going back. I'm gonna push that powder more into my brush. I need to clean that. You see how by cleaning it, you see that? You're wiping that. So now your brush is slightly clean. I go back, I get a little bit more liquid, and then I can pat. You see, I can still work. My surface is it's clean and it's even. But as you're working, okay, let's just say as you're working, you don't clean your brush. As you're working, you need to constantly wipe the brush and add a little bit monomer. But let's just say you don't clean your brush, and then I try to, here, look at the liquid. Look how I get color out. You see that little bit monomer have a little pink tone to it? Because if I don't wipe my brush before, I put everything back into my monomer. And you do that 3-4 times, look, your liquid will be cloudy and it get thickened because you add powder into it. So it's really important for you to lay down the product, wipe that, go back to clean monomer, and then clean that, work on it, wipe your brush off, and go back to the monomer again. It's very important, that step, to keep your monomer clean. Okay, let me discard this because it's getting, so see, this is what I do. I take the clean side, I wipe everything, I absorb every liquid out. Because this is clean, I just keep using the different side of the clean cloth and wipe everything. Because if you don't clean this well, then when you pour the clean liquid in, it's going to be dirty again. But that's how I do it. So let me do that again. Add in a little bit monomer, clean monomer. Okay? And let me work on the cuticle area one more time, because I know a lot of people have questions about the cuticle area. Okay, let me see. Okay, so let's just say I work on a cuticle area, very small. If it's too wet, you can dab it down. And then just lay it right there. And then go in, keep your product behind your brush, and press it down a little bit, and then blend it down. Then I wipe the brush and make sure I have a little bit clean monomer and pat everything out and blend that in. Every time I pat, about 3-4 times, I swipe and clean my brush, and I use that again. So my monomer stay nice and clean. Ooh, that little brush right there, right here. But you see, as I'm wiping it, my monomer is clean because I'm not adding the color or the powder into my liquid. So it's very important. I know a lot of people struggle with this. And as your monomer is contaminated, and that's why your product doesn't stay good, and that's why when you play with your product, your product doesn't get smooth because your brush is not clean and your monomer is not clean, so you have hard time blending that out, and that's why you get a lifting easily. Work in a smaller size. Okay, guys? All right, guys. You guys have any more questions?
Yes. Someone asks, when picking up beads, do I need to tap on the powder to pick up a bigger bead instead of laying down my brush on the powder a little longer?
You don't have to lay it on too long. If you pick up enough liquid, but you don't want to go on lightly. Okay, let me pick up. Okay, let's just say I draw it out. You want to tap it down a little bit. You don't want just barely touch it. You don't want to barely touch it, because if you barely touch it, you don't have enough. Okay, so you want to. It's like a controlled press, meaning you do tap it down, but it's more like a control of it. You want to make sure you have indentation. You see, have the indentation? Let me do that again. Okay, so let's just say a large one. You want to put indentation to your powder. You see it? But if you don't put any indentation in, you're barely touching it, you can't pick up a big one. Because the more contact you have of the brush, the bigger size of the ball you will get. But you don't want to dig all the way in either. You don't want to dig in. You just want the powder to stay on one side, not on both sides of the brush. You don't want to dig it in, okay? You don't want to dig it in. So let me clean the brush, okay? So what you do is you want to control on one side. Again, tap, tap, tap. Okay, you tap, but you move towards yourself. Okay, tap, tap, tap. You keep moving forward. You don't dig in. You don't want to dig in like this. See, the brush get in both sides. That is a no-no, because you're gonna get your brush contaminated with powder, and then when you put it in here, your monomer gonna get cloudy as well. So when the side that you draw out the liquid, pick up the powder on the opposite side. And see, I keep my powder on one side only, not on both sides. So then I only have to work on one side and keep my brush clean. You see? When you know you have a good release is when your powder is not on the brush. That's a good release. And you still have enough movement to work on the bead. That's when you have enough consistency. Okay, all right guys. A proper mix ratio is really essential to create a beautiful and durable acrylic nails. So I would say practice makes perfect. So I would say take some time, don't rush yourself. If you have any questions, come back and ask me. I will help you, or then I could do more videos. But you really have to practice and keep repeating what you practice. You have to get the right ratio, get the right brush, get the right monomer, and just practice along with it. Do exactly what I just tell you, and then just practice and pick up the side. Make sure you work on one side of the brush, not the whole brush, okay? Remember not to dive in like this, okay? That's the key too. Make sure you clean your brush in between your application. Keep your brush clean, your monomer clean, and just tap one side of the brush. You see, even I tap it 10 times, I still have enough liquid on one side. It doesn't get all over the other side as well. This is too dry, but I just want to show you my ball, the bead of the ball, it stays on one side of the brush. And so then you easily control it and keep your brush clean, so then you can keep your monomer clean. The key here is not just the size of the ball, but also keeping your liquid clean for your acrylic nails to last long, okay? All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, you have any more questions, let me know. And yeah, enjoy this class, and I'll see you on Monday, okay? Then we're gonna talk about the structure, nail structure. So then we're gonna talk about the architect of the nail shape, so then you can see where the shape should be. It's very different with long and short nails as well, so you need to get all that fundamental techniques, so then you can build a good, healthy, and beautiful nails. All right, guys, thank you for your time. Hope you make some time and practice. All right, guys, have a good one. Don't forget to subscribe on our YouTube, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Instagram as well. Yeah, take picture of your work. Let me know how you working with it. If you need some help, feel free to contact us, okay? Bye, guys.